Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fourth Better Together session. Really glad to see so many of you here with us today. And uh, hopefully I see some familiar names who are returning, and perhaps we have a lot of new names too. So welcome to the newcomers and welcome back to those of you who've been with us before. I'm Margot Frank and part of the National Leadership Team for Elders Climate Action and have been for the last, 6.5 years. Along with me today leading this webinar is Jen Chandler, our Director of Operations. And we also have Nico Brown, who is our other part-time staff person for community outreach, right? Is that what Nico's title? Yes.
Membership coordinator, membership and chapter
membership coordinator, yes. And Nico's a little under the weather today. She's still with us, but if for those of you who know her enthusiastic brilliance and energy from other sessions, don't worry, she's fine. But she's not her usual energetic self today. So welcome to everyone. And for those of you who were here the last time or were registered, didn't attend it live, but got the follow-up email with the questions for reflection, just want to remind you of what those questions were, and then invite you to put into the chat. For those if there's anyone who doesn't know how to use chat on Zoom, the bottom of your screen, on the bar at the bottom with the icons, there's a chat one. If you click on that, it opens the chat box and you can just, we're going to ask you throughout the webinar today to add your comments in that chat box. So the questions that we asked you to reflect on, because a lot of the work of this Better Together sessions happens on your own or digging into these reflection questions with other people. And so the first question was, what are some steps you would like to take to ensure equity is centered in your work? And also, what is your vision for equitable climate action? So I want to just invite you to throw into the chat some of your thoughts or responses to those questions. And I will keep an eye out for what's coming in and read a few of those out loud as well. And I just want to acknowledge that this is the best live turnout we've had in the series so far. And so thank you to all of you who are here in person today. It's really great to see so many people here. And I'm not seeing anything come up in the chat box yet, but feel free to continue to add there as we move forward. Here come some things. All right, Jerry says, always stepping back and making sure equity is centered in everything I do. And Leslie says, equitable climate action is recognizing the needs of everyone everywhere as we address climate change and seeking the input and perspectives of everyone. Yeah, thank you for that really clear description about equitable climate action from both of you. And here comes some more. Let's see. The thing I can do is to speak up and work on it in all activity, and working on a local campaign that works on water issues, great issues to build connections with low-income communities. Yeah, looking for issues that really impact the most vulnerable parts of your community and collaborating with people in that community, reaching out to all people everywhere, rich or poor. And this is someone's first visit. So thank you and welcome, Marian. And I'm going to move on now to our next slide. And Nico is going to just briefly lead us in this part.
Thank you, Miss Margot. Good afternoon to everyone that's here today. Um, in the creation of this portion of the workshop, one thing that we know like our Constitution and the various different things that have been laid out for us as Americans. And this is an excerpt from one of those. And it simply says, we hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal. And I felt that this was very important because what I want to know from you all is, are we living in a world that upholds justice? That's the question. And if you agree, then how are we? And if you disagree, then how aren't we? So I would love for you all to put your thoughts in the chat. And we're going to take a little time to read a couple of them. But again, it says, we hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal. And so when we talk about being created equal, are we living currently in a world that upholds justice? And if you believe that we are, how are we? And if you don't believe that is so, then how aren't we? Um, and thank you, Miss Kimberly, for saying that not, let me go. Y'all started rolling them in. Not everyone is created equal, especially the Blacks and Indigenous people. Um, Mr. Tom says, no, the effects of pollution, air, soil, water, climate fall where more heavily on low income communities. Okay. And Guilford, the US was structured intentionally to promote inequality. Mr. Gifford, if you will, I really appreciate you saying it. And if you could come off mute, I know that we're deviating a little bit away from what we have, but if you could come off mute and give your perspective and elaborate a little bit on it.
Well, I mean, the most obvious example is slavery and building slavery into the Constitution. That couldn't be more intentional inequality. But also, there was a general favoritism towards the rich. And the way our government was structured was to prevent the mass of people from speaking and to have only the superior, quote, people uh, uh, in charge of things. So Madison, for example, was afraid of the masses. So racism was invented to keep both the black and the poor white people down by keeping us divided from each other. And all this was thought through, talked about, and it was a conspiracy by the rich against all forms of people who were not landowners, for example, because we excluded the people who were not landowners from voting, as well as black people. And there was a saying at the time that, if a job was too dangerous for a black person, give it to an Irishman because you don't have to buy them. It doesn't matter if they die. I mean, it was really not a world that was thinking very clearly about equality or all people being created equal at all. It was a world which was structured for a certain subgroup of the people who were the powerful and the rich.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Gifford. And Miss Sally, you had a really great response as well. So if you could, and if you don't mind, come off mute for me and just elaborate a little bit more on your answer, if you don't mind.
Okay. It's it's just it's a fact. In Oakland, for instance, where we have all the refineries, there's more black communities there than there are white communities. And it's also proven that children are getting asthmatic because of it. Look at the third world countries. Those poor people are struggling just to have clean water. And you don't see rich people having any trouble with clean water. So, and I
Well,
can't remember where I read that, but I read that and it just kind of stuck with me, the 75%, because it's an eye opener. 75%, and even in the climate report that came out to the UN, it talked about how humans, it's 95% probability that we are causing these human man-made conditions that are causing climate change. So I don't know, numbers just stick in my head for some reason.
yeah, I really get that. Thank you so much, Miss Sally and Mr. Gifford, for your illustrious responses to this. And everyone who put in a chat. I haven't had a chance to finish reading them all, but I definitely thank you all for talking to us about um, this quote that was pulled from a thing. If you would, and I think I'm gonna pass it back to Miss Margot.
Thank you, Nico. And Jen, we're going to ask you, we have a short video to share, just a few minutes long.
You jumped a couple slides there, Margot.
Oh,
Did you want to do the what is justice slide or?
oh, I apologize. We're a little confused today. I, yeah, I thought we were going to watch the video now. I see. Oh, okay, never mind. I see. First is our question of what is justice. Okay, sorry about that confusion, folks. So again, using the chat, and then we'll call on a few of you to share. What is your sense of what when we use the word justice, what does that even mean? And what does that look like? And so if you might want to put in the chat some of your thoughts about that. Okay, Sandy says when laws are life affirming for all and are enforced fairly. I like that. That's beautiful. Gwen says making every conscious attempt to make something whole again. Take the environment, for example. Justice is equal opportunity to live in one society, says Russ. Kimberly says, we saw justice when George Floyd's killer got a long prison term. So a number of different kinds of perspectives on what justice is. Oh, here Mike says the ability to be heard. And Polly says, justice is about fairness for all. This can include natural laws too that the indigenous people believe in. I see some people shaking their heads as I read some of these. So I see that they're really speaking to many of you. And, all of these questions, we're just skimming the surface of these questions here today. And so I really want to encourage all of you outside of this hour that we're together to wrestle with these questions. Oh, here Jan says, justice doesn't exist. And Russ points out that humans are what create injustice. There's not that the natural world, things work equally for all. Oh, and Gifford says, don't we need to go beyond justice to taking care of everyone? Well, I would think that is a kind of justice when everyone is taken care of and held with respect and love and having what they need in a safe world. Diana says justice is when everyone is seen and acknowledged. So thank you all, and you can continue to add those as we move along. And now I think we're gonna, let's see. Oh, whoops. Let's go back. Slide. So the definition from the dictionary of justice is the establishment or determination of rights according to the rules of law or equity. So it's really carrying out that sense of equity is what how the dictionary describes that. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, Jen. Climate change is constituting a compound injustice. And this is from a quote that Nico shared with us about how climate change will exacerbate the poverty and push people closer to the margins who are already there. And so, you know, we've seen this again and again. We saw this with Ida recently, and with the storms in New York City that flooded basement apartments, that the people in the county where Sally lives, next to my county, fire there burned down a mobile home park full of seniors, low-income seniors. So those of us who are already on the margins are the ones who are on the front lines more than anyone else of climate change and have the least ability to recover financially, health-wise, emotionally, in all those ways. And now, Jen, you want to share the video? And so that everyone can watch that, please.
Okay, so this is a city. Here are all the people living in it, people of all different colors, ages, wealths, and incomes. Except they don't all live together in the same place. They're separated into different parts of the city by what color they are, what language they speak, and how much money they have. And those different parts of the city look quite different. The parts that are whiter and wealthier tend to have green spaces, grocery stores with nutritious organic food, and of course the money to buy it, and are often far away from pollution-emitting freeways. The parts that are poorer and more diverse tend to have industrial sites, heavy-duty diesel-polluted ports and highways, and hazardous waste, all things that the city relies on to run properly, but that heavily pollute the air and water. And even if they had those grocery stores with nutritious organic food, most residents there couldn't afford it anyway. How did this happen? Well, this segregation can be traced back to race-based zoning and housing policies, but it wasn't always as deliberate as plain old racism. Some separations can simply be traced to poor land use planning. And as a result, these residents of the same city live very different lives. Say the city realizes it has an emissions problem. It comes up with a plan to reduce air pollution, plant more trees to suck up the carbon, or start a cap and trade program. But those trees get planted in the neighborhoods that are already green, and the factories that are spewing toxins into the air just buy more carbon offsets and keep spewing their toxins. The benefits of these programs are enjoyed by the communities that are already doing just fine, and the communities that were hurting most from all that air pollution, well, they're still hurting. This isn't just an imaginary city, this is the story of real cities all across the US where people might live in the very same area code, but their race, ethnicity, or wealth and income bracket causes them to experience wildly different quality of air, water, and life. In fact, it can even mean that they also experience different deaths. That's how serious this stuff is. This kind of inequity expands far beyond cities, too. Rural areas are full of commercially valuable resources like oil and coal, and they're also home to indigenous and low-income communities. But when those resources are extracted, those communities don't see any of the money, and they end up with all the air and water contamination that's left over from the extraction. And we even see this injustice on a global level, like in small island nations that are forced to directly confront the consequences of rising sea levels, but haven't played any significant role in the industries that are causing climate change. These peoples are sometimes forced to flee their homes because their land is literally going underwater. But the very states that did play a hand in creating climate change don't have migration policies to accommodate them. So when we talk about environmental justice, we're talking about how we can try to break down and reimagine a system that's built up on these inequities. A system where those who are already disadvantaged because of their race and economic status are made poorer because they're unable to profit from the resources that the world depends on and are made sick or worse by the environmental contamination that comes with extracting those resources. Social inequities are intimately tied to the environment. That's why social justice is an environmental issue too.
Okay, that's I hope that you found that little short video as good at clarifying the issue as we did. Jen, I'm
Very
noticing
well done.
there's a black box kind of covering up part of the slide. I don't know if that's something you can remove or not. Ah, you did it. Thank you. Oops, let's go back. Yeah, okay. So as we're preparing to go into breakout rooms, and you'll have about 20 minutes in the breakout rooms, kind of get you thinking a little bit about ways that we can promote justice. One is by spreading the word. So those of you who are here today and who care about this can begin to talk about this with other people. And not just talk about it, but to listen, especially to listen to those people who are most impacted, to really hear how they're being impacted, what their concerns are, what their needs are. Attend a rally. Now, of course, right now is not rally time because of COVID, but there are some rallies still happening, many of them online. And so there are ways, collective action is the most powerful thing that we can do for change. Reclaim your community. Really get engaged with the community where you live, all aspects of the community where you live, and build bridges there. Volunteer with ECA, volunteer with other climate organizations, volunteer with local groups that are addressing social justice issues and are concerned about climate change as well. And support those local organizations, not just the national ones, the big greens. Work with your politicians, your elected officials, whether they're in your city, in town, your county, your township, your state, or the federally elected people. Really build relationships with them. Embrace the diversity of the world that you live in. And even if the little world that you live in is not diverse, I'm sure that not far from your little world, your little neighborhood or town, there is a lot of diversity. And so building those bridges and being open to hearing people's experience, not going in trying to tell them you're here to save the day. Sign pledges, those help. And ECA sends out letters and pledges for you to sign every month. And so check your email boxes for those when they arrive. And of course, practice what you preach. It's not just about talking the talk, but it's also about walking the walk. So let's move on to looking at what the breakout room questions are going to be. Oh, there's that little black box again. Thank you, Jen. Thank goodness we have the technical wizardry of Jen. We'd be really lost without that. So, we're seeing what you're doing on the screen there. And again, there's a black box. Thank you. So the questions for you to grapple with in your breakout rooms are, what climate or environmental justice issue can I advocate for in my community? And these will end up in the chat box also, so that you'll be able to see them. So what can you advocate for in your community, and in what ways can you advocate on behalf of the issue? And what actions can you and will you commit to doing? I'm someone who can come up with a lot of great ideas, but the question is, what am I going to follow up on and actually do? Uh, In what ways can we collectively influence equity and justice to drive our group's climate work? Whether that group is a chapter you're part of, another organization you're part of, or ECA. What can we do collectively to influence equity and justice in our climate work? And how can we have justice if things are inequitable? That's a big question. So you may not have time to dive deeply into all of these questions, but we are, when you come back as part of our sharing, debriefing from the breakout rooms, we're going to invite you to share some action that you want to take. So you will get a little invitation to your breakout room that will pop up on the screen. And when that pops up for you, you can just say yes to it. And then you'll get a couple minutes notice before the end of the breakout session so that you can wind things up and then come back to the larger group together. So enjoy your conversations. We are going to have a lot of breakout rooms today because we're trying to keep the breakout room small. And we currently have 30 people on the call. So enjoy your conversations. It really gives you a chance to connect with other people more directly in the breakout rooms than we're able to do in this big group. And maybe you'll even find someone in your breakout group who's in the same area where you are, and you'll want to stay connected. You can always share your contact information, people in the breakout room, and that information with someone individually or with a group. What you share in chat in the breakout room does not repopulate back into the chat box for the entire group. So if you're sharing a resource or an organization in the chat box in your breakout room, and you want everyone to know about it when you come back to the bigger group, you'll need to put that in to the chat box when you return to the larger group. And Jen, are we ready to send people out yet?
Yes, we are all set. So I'm going to go ahead and
Okay.
open the room. You'll just accept the invitation to join your room, and we'll see you back here in about 20 minutes.
Have a good conversation. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I want to invite you in the chat box now to share an action that either you hope to take or hopefully you're committing to moving forward with, that you got some clarity about during your breakout rooms, and you can share those ideas and inspire other people here to also think creatively about what they can do. There's someone who, Polly says, my nonprofit does have a friendly contest called the Be the Example Contest, and she shares the website, and also a tiny homes project. She's in the Bay Area, so working on housing is a really important issue. We know that people who are do not have houses to live in, are terribly impacted by climate change, flooding, heat waves. Kimberly's going to call local, state, and federal officials for action. Some people were focusing on getting plastic out of our lifestyle and environment. And Russ shared about Citizens Climate Lobby to create a carbon fee. Got quite a variety of kinds of things that people have come up with. And I see other people are typing, and so we'll see what else. Joining in efforts to bring solar panels and energy transition to poorer neighborhoods. Great idea. And every community, I think, has a federally funded weatherization program. And so working with them to get the word out and to get funding for solar panels for those homes, it's a great idea. Right, Gifford is a writer and he focused on climate mitigation. Mike Allen learned that we need to bring respected members of our communities to join us in pressuring the city council. Sally says, our group has had a lot of wonderful conversation, but didn't really address the questions specifically. We talked a lot about the last question. The poor communities have much fewer resources to adapt to climate impacts. Thank you for naming that, Sally. Meg says subsidies for solar energy to apartments, condos, and other community housing. And Carol says in the community she's in Northern California, they're building a halfway house for homeless so they can cook without starting a forest fire. Very important. That's such a need for there to be community kitchens for people in fire-prone areas to cook in. So really great ideas that have come up. Let's see, bringing to light the history of redlining and housing discrimination to urban development. Polly says she's probably going to move her checking account. Great idea. And so I want to encourage all of you to look at where you are keeping your money and what insurance companies you're using for homeowners insurance, Medicare supplements. Mutual of Omaha is pretty notorious for funding fossil fuel extraction. JP Morgan has been making some moves, but JP Morgan Chase is also a pretty bad outlier on that. Someone says buying more from BIPOC businesses. That's Black, Indigenous, people of color businesses. Gwen says we talked about calling to reclaim voters via environmentalvoter.org. Great organization. And I believe our national call this month is going to be with Nathaniel Stinnett, who's the founder and leader of that organization. We have a lot of our members who volunteered with them. Also spoke about how impacted tenants and residents are in climate vulnerable areas.
Excuse me, what was the organization that you said you had a lot of people volunteers?
Oh, Environmental Voter Project.
Okay.
And you can just Google them.
I'll drop our link in the chat. So
okay, great, thank you. They have a whole system for texting and calling people who are registered voters who through big data, they discovered that they are ardent environmentalists, but they actually, although they might say, oh yeah, I always vote, they don't. And so getting them to vote the climate. It's not a partisan-ish program. It's just to get environmentalists to show up and vote their concerns for the climate.
It's just environmentalvoter.org.
Environmentalvoter.org, yes.
And if you volunteer for environmentalvoter.org, when you sign up, just do the little drop down arrow and select Elders Climate Action. So they know that you came from us. You'll see it in there.
Someone is reminding us, if you live in California, there is an election happening now with absentee ballots to recall the governor here. He is the only person of the 46 other candidates who are running against him, if he's recalled, who cares about climate and has a plan and is taking action on that. So please make sure that you get your ballots, your California ballots back in by the 14th. You don't have to put a postage stamp on it even.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
It's Nyana. Are people
Nyana.
Are people talking about citizen scientists and doing projects as citizens and collecting data?
Thank you for mentioning that. That's a great recommendation. If you want to put anything in the chat about how people can connect with the Citizen Scientist Initiative program, that is a great idea. And in California, there's a new program that started in a book that goes with it on becoming a climate steward. It comes out of the California Naturalist Program, where ordinary people get trained to be naturalists in their community. And now they've established something called the Citizen, whatever it was, I just forgot. Anyway, so lots of good ideas here. We're getting to the end of our time. And so you're going to, Jen, do you want to bring up that last slide with the link information?
I also just wanted to tell everybody, make sure you're checking your inbox on Monday. Monday, we will be sending out a very important action alert that will really be focused on reconciliation and the infrastructure bill, and in a really concerted effort to do a big push of calling on Monday. So we'll be sending out an action alert with a call script and the phone number that you to connect you with your members of Congress, that action alert. It will also have a comment script for EPA's transportation standards comment period, which ends with the comment period closes on the 27th of September. So it's a really important window that we really take action on those two things, commenting to the EPA about transportation, and then really putting the word out to all of our members of Congress that they need to be supporting infrastructure and reconciliation. So we will make sure that that goes out to you on Monday. Please heed that call and make the call and do the actions. We need everybody to participate. And let me show you the last slide.
Yeah, if you hadn't come up with an action yet, there's one. There's a couple for you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just take the actions that we invite you to take. And so between now and our Better Together seminar in a month, you will get an email tomorrow, I think. We record the part of the seminar that's not the breakout rooms. And so people get that recording, and you will also get the questions. Oh wait, that's not the last slide. The one that has the link to the survey.
Oh, okay.
So there's also, we really, really, really welcome and need your feedback. What's working and what's not working about how we're doing this series, so that we're a grassroots organization. And if we don't hear from the grassroots of our organization, then we're working in a vacuum. So your voice is essential. So take just a couple of minutes is the most it will take to give us some feedback. And we hope to see you next month on October 14th. We'll be doing these through December, the second Thursday in December. And it's really good to be with all of you today. Thank you all for being with us. Hoping you all continue to stay safe from COVID, stay safe from climate disasters, and are able to stay safe enough so you can begin to take those actions that you really want to take. So thank you. Have a good evening, and together we can do this. Bye-bye.